I want to talk to you today about something that has been a profound teacher in my life. It's something we all struggle with, especially when life doesn't unfold the way we expect. We've all asked ourselves at some point, why me? Why this? Why now? And in those moments, we might feel lost, confused, or even defeated. But there's something I've come to know over the years. Sometimes in the most unexpected ways, life has a plan for you. And that plan, it's bigger, brighter, and more beautiful than you can possibly imagine. You see, we spend so much of our lives trying to control everything. We think we have to map out every detail, every step, every moment. But what if the true power lies not in holding on, but in letting go, in trusting that there is a greater force at work, something that sees the whole picture, even when we can only see a tiny sliver of it? Surrendering to the process is a radical act of faith. And in that surrender, we make space for the blessings we never even dreamed of. Now, I know it's hard to hear this when you're facing challenges. You may be wondering why something you've worked for hasn't come to fruition yet, or why you haven't received the answers you so desperately seek. But I want you to know everything has its time. Divine timing is a real thing. Sometimes we're not ready to receive what's meant for us. Sometimes the universe is setting things up behind the scenes. And when the time is right, when you're ready, you will step into it. And when you do, you'll see the beauty in the waiting. I'll be honest, life doesn't always make sense in the moment. It can feel like you're walking in the dark, unsure of where the next step will take you. But here's the thing, you're not walking alone. There is something greater guiding you. Even when you can't see it, even when you can't touch it. That invisible thread of trust, that's what keeps you moving forward. Trust that something is always working in your favor, even when you don't understand how or why. When life doesn't go the way we plan, we often feel like we've been sidetracked. But I want you to reframe that. I want you to see those detours as divine redirections. Sometimes we think we know what's best for us, but life has a different route that will lead us exactly where we need to be. Those unexpected turns. They're actually teaching you something you wouldn't have learned on the straight path. And here's the thing I've learned about patience. It's not about just waiting. Patience is about trusting the process. It's about believing that every step you take, no matter how small, is leading you towards something greater. It's not about pushing or forcing things to happen. It's about letting go and allowing things to unfold naturally. And when you let go, you make space for miracles, synchronicities, and opportunities to find you. And while you're in the waiting, I want you to practice gratitude. I know it's hard, especially when you're waiting for something big, something life-changing. But gratitude is the key to unlocking the next phase of your journey. When you can find something to be thankful for, even in the waiting, it shifts your energy. It opens up your heart. And that's when things start to flow toward you. So my dear friends, I want to leave you with this: trust the process, trust the journey, trust that the plan is greater than you could ever imagine. Life has a way of leading you exactly where you need to be, even if it doesn't always look like it from where you're standing. Keep going, keep believing, and know that everything is unfolding just as it should, perfectly. This speech, styled after Oprah's motivational and reflective tone, aims to connect emotionally with the audience, offering them a sense of peace, purpose, and trust in the unknown. The power of surrender is one of the most transformative lessons we can learn in life. It's a concept that goes against our natural instincts, especially in a world that constantly tells us to push harder, do more, and take control of every situation. We're taught that if we don't steer the ship, it will crash. And yet, what I've learned over time is that sometimes the truest strength we can show is in letting go. Surrender doesn't mean giving up or giving in to despair. It's not about being passive or letting life happen to you without any agency. No, surrender is a powerful choice. It's the decision to release the burden of always having to figure everything out, the relentless pressure of needing to have all the answers. It's about trusting that life will unfold exactly as it's meant to, even when you can't see the full picture yet. Imagine for a moment that life is like a river. When we try to control the flow, we find ourselves exhausted, fighting against the current, struggling to stay afloat. But when we let go, when we trust the river's course, we are carried by its gentle current. That doesn't mean we stop being active participants in our lives. It simply means we stop resisting the flow. We stop trying to control things that are beyond our control. And instead, we begin to move with them. Surrendering is an act of faith. It's saying, I don't have all the answers right now, but I trust that everything is happening for me and not to me. It's a deep belief that the universe, or whatever higher power you believe in, has a plan for you that is far greater than what your limited perspective can comprehend. It's about recognizing that sometimes what seems like a setback, a disappointment, or a detour is actually a stepping stone to something more aligned with your true purpose. When we surrender, we create space for something better to emerge. We allow life to surprise us, to show us paths we never thought possible. But we can only receive those blessings if we are willing to let go of our need to control every outcome. It's like trying to hold tightly to sand. The tighter we grip, the more it slips away. But when we open our hands, the sand stays. In the same way, when we open our hearts and let go of rigid expectations, we can welcome new opportunities, new relationships, and new growth. Surrendering doesn't mean you stop working or striving. It simply means you shift your mindset. You stop forcing things and start flowing with life, trusting that it will lead you where you need to go. It's about letting go of your attachment to how things should be and being open to how they could be, even when it doesn't match your original vision. And in that space of release, you invite grace into your life. It's a practice, of course. It's something we can return to every single day. Because let's face it, life will continue to throw challenges our way. But when we surrender, we stop trying to control those challenges. We stop fighting every wave. Instead, we trust the process, we trust ourselves, and we trust the journey. In the end, we realize that when we stop fighting the flow of life, we allow it to carry us exactly where we need to be. If you think about the way the universe works, there's an order, a flow that moves through everything. The stars don't rush, the seasons don't hurry, they arrive exactly when they're supposed to. And that's how your life is unfolding too. Sometimes the most challenging part is surrendering to that process and trusting that things are unfolding just as they should. Have you ever looked back on a situation that felt like it was taking too long, only to realize with hindsight that it came together at exactly the right time? Maybe the job you wanted didn't materialize, but months later you found an opportunity that was even better, one you couldn't have imagined before. Or perhaps you met someone at a time in your life when you were ready for them in a way you weren't before. If it had happened any sooner, you wouldn't have been in the right place to appreciate it or make the most of it. Divine timing is all about alignment. It's about trusting that everything you're experiencing, every moment of joy or challenge, is leading you to where you need to be. It's not random. It's not by accident. Life's unfolding is part of a greater unseen pattern that we might not fully grasp in the moment, but which will make perfect sense when we look back. Every experience, every twist and turn is shaping you, preparing you, and ultimately leading you to the right place at the right time. There's also beauty in the waiting. It's in those moments of stillness that we often discover something about ourselves we hadn't known before. We grow, we learn patience, we learn resilience. And sometimes we simply learn to trust that what's meant for us will arrive when we're ready for it. Waiting doesn't mean nothing is happening. It just means something important is being prepared in the background. And while you're waiting, it's essential to live in the present. Too often we get so caught up in what's coming next that we miss the beauty of what's unfolding right now. The people we meet, the lessons we learn, the simple joys of life, they're all part of the plan. When you can release the need for things to happen on your timeline and instead embrace what's in front of you, you'll begin to notice how perfectly everything is lining up. Ultimately, divine timing is an invitation to trust. It's about trusting that there's a larger plan at play and that you are not walking this path alone. Even when things feel uncertain, even when the future is unclear, there's a force working behind the scenes, orchestrating events, moving pieces, and opening doors at exactly the right moment. And while it's impossible to see that big picture in its entirety, we can find peace in knowing that we don't have to. Our job is simply to stay present, trust the process, and allow life to unfold at its own pace. When we do, we begin to realize that everything is happening not in spite of us, but for us in perfect divine timing. Faith in unseen forces is one of the most profound aspects of human experience, though it's often difficult to explain or fully understand. It's that quiet knowing that there's something greater than ourselves guiding us, protecting us, and leading us, even when we can't see it, touch it, or always make sense of it. It's a belief in a force, whether you call it fate, destiny, the universe, or a higher power that shapes our lives in ways we can't always comprehend, but which we come to trust with time. There are moments in life when everything seems uncertain. We find ourselves standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take, and the way forward feels clouded or obscure. In these moments, it's easy to feel lost or alone, to question whether we're truly in control of our lives. But faith in unseen forces reminds us that we don't have to have all the answers. It asks us to trust that even in the silence, even in the chaos, there is a purpose and a plan unfolding beyond what we can see in the present moment. It's a kind of spiritual surrender, the recognition that we are part of something much bigger than our individual lives. Often we struggle to see the connections between events or people, the way one seemingly insignificant choice or experience leads to something greater down the road. But with faith in the unseen, we start to understand that everything is woven together in ways we might not be able to explain or predict. Life is like a vast tapestry, and while we may only see a small section of it, we can trust that the whole picture is unfolding exactly as it's meant to. This faith doesn't always come easily, especially in moments of hardship. When we face struggles or challenges, it can feel as though we're disconnected from anything larger, or that the universe or whatever force you believe in is silent or indifferent to our pain. But that's where the power of faith comes in. It's not about seeing signs or receiving guarantees. It's about trusting in spite of the uncertainty. It's about believing that even when life doesn't make sense, even when the pieces don't seem to fit together, there is someone holding it all together, guiding us through. Faith in unseen forces is also about trusting the timing of life. It means letting go of the need to control every outcome and instead allowing yourself to be carried by the flow of the universe, even when it doesn't take you where you thought you would go. How often have we looked back on our lives and realized that something we thought was a setback, a disappointment, or a failure was actually part of a greater design? When we have faith in the unseen, we trust that even when things don't go as planned, they are still unfolding in ways we can't yet see or understand. There's a deeper peace that comes with faith in unseen forces. It's the peace of knowing that you are not alone, that even when the road ahead is unclear, you are being guided. Sometimes that guidance comes through intuition, a sense of knowing that nudges us in a certain direction. Other times it may show up in the form of people, mentors, friends, strangers who seem to appear exactly when we need them. And sometimes that guidance may feel like an invisible hand gently steering us when we need to be steered and holding us back when we need to pause. The key is recognizing that these moments are not accidents. They are part of a greater plan, a plan that is orchestrated with love, wisdom, and care. Having faith in the unseen also means having the patience to wait for the next step when we can't see it clearly. It's easy to grow frustrated when we feel like we don't have all the answers or when the way forward isn't clear. But faith teaches us that the answers will come in their own time. It may not be when we want them, but they will come when we are ready. And in the meantime, we are being shaped, refined, and prepared for what's next. Every challenge, every delay, every moment of waiting is an opportunity to deepen that trust, to lean into the faith that we are never truly lost. And there's beauty in that uncertainty too. When we open ourselves to faith in the unseen, we make room for possibility. We allow for the miracles, the serendipities, the synchronicities that we could never have predicted or planned for. Life becomes less about controlling every detail and more about surrendering to the flow of something larger, something more expansive than we could have imagined. It's the trust that what is meant for us will find us, even if it doesn't show up exactly as we envisioned it. Ultimately, faith in unseen forces is about surrendering our limited view of the world and embracing a bigger picture. It's about knowing that there is a force beyond our comprehension that has our back, even when we can't feel it. It's the belief that we are part of a much larger story, a story that is unfolding with meaning, purpose, and grace, even when we don't have the whole script. And in that faith, we find peace, direction, and the courage to move forward, trusting that what lies ahead will be exactly what we need. Life has a way of taking us down unexpected paths, and sometimes those paths feel more like detours, unplanned, unwanted, and disruptive. When we find ourselves veering off course from what we thought was our ideal trajectory, it can be tempting to view it as a setback, a failure, or even a mistake. Yet, in my experience, some of the most profound lessons and experiences come from these very detours, and they often bring us to places we never could have imagined for ourselves. At first, these detours can feel like obstacles. We may have a clear vision of where we want to go, whether it's a career, a relationship, or a dream we've been chasing, and when something disrupts that vision, it can be disorienting. We may question, why is this happening? Why now? I was so close to my goal, but I've learned that these moments of disruption often bring with them the opportunity for deeper growth, transformation, and insight. They are not roadblocks, but invitations to shift, to learn, and to evolve. When life takes you off the path you thought you were meant to walk, it's easy to feel like you're lost, like you've made a wrong turn. But what if these detours are exactly where you need to be? What if this unexpected route is offering you something you never could have found on the path you had planned for yourself? Maybe it's a new perspective, a new skill, or a new connection that will ultimately serve you a greater purpose. There is often beauty in the unexpected. We may not see it at the time, but when we reflect back, we realize that the detour led us to something far more meaningful than we could have envisioned. Take, for example, the times in life when relationships don't work out the way we thought they would. Maybe we meet someone we feel deeply connected to, only for the relationship to end, leaving us heartbroken and confused. In those moments, it's easy to feel as though we've lost something important, that we've somehow been robbed of a future we had imagined. But when we look at the larger picture, we often realize that these detours in love were leading us to the person or the experience that we were truly meant to have. The pain of a breakup, for instance, may open the door to self-discovery, to healing, or to a future partner who will better align with who we are becoming. What seemed like a painful detour was, in fact, the path toward a deeper version of ourselves, one that was not yet ready for what we wanted, but would be when the time was right. The same applies to our careers and ambitions. How many times have we found ourselves in a job or a role that didn't fit us, feeling frustrated and wondering why things weren't progressing as we hoped? Maybe we had our heart set on a particular position, but instead we were given a task or responsibility that felt like a sidestep. At first, this detour might feel like a waste of time, a setback, or a failure. But in reality, those unexpected opportunities often give us the skills, experience, or knowledge we need to succeed in ways we hadn't anticipated. Perhaps a job we thought we didn't want teaches us a new skill that opens up entirely new career possibilities. Or maybe a period of unemployment pushes us to explore a completely different path, one that aligns more deeply with our passions and values. And let's not forget the detours that occur when our health is challenged. A sudden illness or injury can completely alter the course of our lives, making us feel vulnerable and out of control. But in these moments, life often has a way of offering us lessons in resilience, patience, and self-care. We are forced to slow down, to reassess our priorities, and to find new ways of being in the world. While the experience may be painful or frustrating, it often leads us to a deeper appreciation of our bodies, our well-being, and our strength. We realize that health isn't something we should take for granted, and we develop a greater sense of gratitude for the everyday things we might have overlooked before. The point is, when we step back and reflect on these detours, we can see that they weren't random or without purpose. Every detour, whether it's a shift in our career, a change in our relationships, or an unexpected challenge, has something to teach us. They often push us out of our comfort zones, and in doing so, they help us grow in ways we never could have imagined. We learn about ourselves, our strengths, our resilience, and our capacity for change, and we begin to trust that life's twists and turns are often part of a bigger plan that we may not yet fully understand. Sometimes detours help us step into our true calling. We may start out on one path, thinking it's our dream, only to find that life has other plans for us. A detour can redirect us to something that resonates more deeply with who we are. something that aligns with our values and passions in a way we didn't realize before. When we embrace the detour with an open heart, we create the space for new opportunities to emerge, opportunities that might never have come to us had we stubbornly held onto our original path. Ultimately, life's detours remind us that there is no such thing as a wasted experience. Every moment, every challenge, every unexpected turn brings with it the chance to evolve, to grow, and to learn something new. Even when things don't go as planned, even when the detour seems long and winding, we are always moving forward. And sometimes we are exactly where we need to be, even if we don't know it yet. So the next time life takes you on an unexpected detour, I encourage you to pause, breathe, and trust that this is part of your journey. It may not be the path you expected, but it's leading you to exactly where you need to be. Embrace the detours because they often carry the most profound lessons. Patience is one of the most valuable gifts we can cultivate in our lives, yet it's also one of the most challenging virtues to practice. In a world that celebrates speed, efficiency, and instant results, the idea of waiting, of trusting the process rather than forcing an outcome can seem counterintuitive, even frustrating. We live in a time where everything is available at the touch of a button, from food to information to communication. So when we are asked to wait for something, whether it's a dream, a relationship, or a personal transformation, it's easy to become anxious, discouraged, or even resentful. At its core, patience teaches us to let go of the need for immediate gratification. We live in a culture that prizes getting there as quickly as possible. But what if the beauty of life lies not in the destination, but in the journey itself? Patience is about being fully present in the process, whether it's the small, everyday moments or the longer, more challenging stretches of our lives. It's about surrendering our need to control the outcome and allowing things to unfold at their own pace, trusting that the timing will be right when we're ready. In those moments of waiting, we have the opportunity to practice faith, not just in the outcome, but in ourselves. Patience is a form of self-trust. It's knowing that even when things don't seem to be progressing, we are still moving forward. Growth is often subtle, imperceptible in the moment, but it is always happening. Just as a seed doesn't bloom overnight, our dreams, desires, and aspirations take time to come to fruition. But if we are patient, if we trust the process, we will see that everything unfolds at the perfect moment in a way that is aligned with who we are becoming. Patience also teaches us to be kind to ourselves. So often, we are our harshest critics, rushing to judge ourselves for not being further along or for not having achieved our goals faster. We live with the weight of comparison, constantly measuring our progress against the standards set by others or by a timeline we've imposed on ourselves. But patience encourages us to release those judgments, to accept that we are exactly where we need to be at this moment. It reminds us that we are not failures for not having achieved our dreams yet. We are simply in the process of becoming. And that's something worth celebrating. Moreover, patience gives us the space to appreciate the present. When we are constantly chasing after the next thing, it's easy to miss the beauty of the here and now. Patience teaches us to slow down, to savor each step of the journey, even when it's difficult. It invites us to find joy not only in the arrival, but in the moments leading up to it. Every experience, every challenge, every delay is part of our story. And when we can be patient with ourselves and our circumstances, we open ourselves up to a deeper sense of fulfillment in the waiting. Sometimes the hardest part of patience is accepting that we can't rush things, that we can't force life to move at the speed we want it to. This can feel particularly difficult when we're facing challenges or feeling uncertain about the future. It's easy to fall into frustration, to feel like we're stuck or stagnant. But patience teaches us that there is a wisdom in the pause. It is during these times that we are called to trust not in our immediate circumstances, but in the greater flow of life. Sometimes what feels like stagnation is actually a moment of preparation. The waiting period gives us time to gather the strength, the clarity, or the resources we need to move forward with greater purpose and direction. In those quiet moments, we may be reflecting, learning, or simply being, and all of that is part of the journey. The gift of patience is not just in what we receive at the end of the waiting period, but in who we become in the waiting. Patience builds resilience as it teaches us to endure, to stay steady, and to remain hopeful, even when things feel uncertain. It helps us develop a deeper sense of trust, not just in life, but in ourselves. It allows us to discover our capacity for perseverance, for faith, and for grace. And when the time finally arrives, when we reach that moment we've been waiting for, we often see that it was worth the wait. The things we desire are not just about achieving a goal, but about who we become in the pursuit of it. The patience we practiced along the way often becomes the foundation for the success we experience, because it allows us to approach our goals with wisdom, humility, and a sense of gratitude. Letting go of control is one of the most challenging yet liberating practices we can embrace in life. As human beings, we are naturally inclined to want to direct the course of our lives, to control outcomes, and to shape our experiences according to our desires and plans. This desire for control often comes from a place of fear of the unknown, fear of making mistakes, or fear of not achieving what we set out to do. We believe that if we can control the details, we can prevent things from going wrong and ensure that everything unfolds the way we want it to. Letting go of control requires a deep surrender to the unknown, a trust that life is unfolding in its own time, and that there is wisdom and purpose in every experience, even the ones that don't make sense at the time. It means accepting that there are things beyond our control, and that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's about finding peace in uncertainty and trusting that in the grand scheme of things, we are exactly where we are supposed to be. One of the hardest areas in which to let go of control is in relationships. We often try to control how others feel or behave, thinking that we can shape the dynamics to our liking. But when we hold on to this level of control, we risk losing the authenticity of the connection. True love, friendship, and collaboration thrive when we allow others the space to be themselves without trying to mold them into what we think they should be. Letting go of control in relationships doesn't mean we stop caring or stop communicating. It simply means we trust the other person's journey, allow them to grow at their own pace, and release any expectations that might cause tension or resentment. In work and career, we also encounter the temptation to control outcomes. We may set rigid expectations for our achievements, creating a sense of pressure that doesn't allow for flexibility or spontaneity. We push ourselves harder only to find that we are burning out, not enjoying the process, and not leaving room for creativity or inspiration to flow. But when we let go of the need to control every step of our career path, we often find that new opportunities emerge, or that doors open that we hadn't even considered before. Sometimes the best opportunities come when we stop trying to force things and start allowing ourselves to follow the natural flow of our passions and instincts. Letting go of control is also deeply connected to how we view challenges and adversity. We often try to control difficult situations by finding immediate solutions or by resisting what is happening. But sometimes the best thing we can do is to stop fighting the problem and instead allow ourselves to fully experience the emotions and lessons that come with it. Resistance only strengthens the grip that a problem has on us, while surrender creates space for healing, growth, and insight. When we let go of the need to control our challenges, we allow ourselves to respond more calmly, with clarity, and from a place of deeper wisdom. When we loosen our grip on control, we make room for growth. We realize that life doesn't need to be perfect to be beautiful. It's the imperfections, the messiness, and the unpredictability that make life rich, vibrant, and full of unexpected blessings. Letting go of control allows us to surrender to life's mystery, to embrace the ebb and flow, and to trust that everything is unfolding as it should, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment. This doesn't mean being passive or apathetic about life. It means being actively engaged, but in a way that is open to possibility, flexible to change, and grounded in trust. It's a practice of mindfulness, of being present in the moment without attaching ourselves too tightly to the outcomes. It's about setting intentions and working toward our goals, but also about knowing when to step back and let life take its own course. Ultimately, letting go of control is about freedom. It's about freeing ourselves from the pressure of needing to have everything figured out, from the fear of uncertainty, and from the belief that we must have all the answers. When we let go, we open ourselves up to the full range of life's experiences, knowing that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. And when we trust that life is unfolding exactly as it's meant to, we are able to navigate the twists and turns with grace, confidence, and peace.